Morning, Philip.
Oh, good morning, Corey. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
Oh, just lovely. It's a lovely day. It's raining. It's
You're not selling me, Phil. You're not
I,
selling me on this at all. I thought you were a salesperson.
you know what? Well, kind of. No, it was. Is it raining there? Do you guys have?
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
4 degrees, so it's clearing up.
yeah.
I had
It was nice.
my driveway was about 8 feet of ice. Now it's only a foot of ice, so that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. No, it's finally the snow is leaving. For those of you listening, it is the winter wonderland where we live.
So all the bodies start to surface. This is the least favorite time of year.
From the winter killings,
melts.
all of the bodies.
That's right. And the worst is the dog, the dog crap, right?
God.
Like you see, like everybody's like, my dog crapped in the snow. It melts down to the bottom. I don't need to pick it up.
Yeah. So I sent the kids out yesterday. Oh, we all want dogs. Sure. Yeah. Nobody wants to clean up their shit. Right.
It's called Poo Patrol, Phil.
Oh yeah. So I'm like, get out there. That's a winter's worth of, oh my God. They were little troopers. They went out and cleaned it up. But if you don't do that, then it becomes just because it's sort of semi-frozen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like unfrosting a Neanderthal from like a wintry grave.
Probably smells about the same.
Yeah. And the dogs are all at the window like, what are they doing?
Who's the master now?
Yeah.
Who's cleaning up whose poo?
They are cleaning up my poop. Nice. But yeah, no, it's been good. How about that war in Russia?
Not a war in Russia, it's a war in the Ukraine. I mean,
did you see they're running out of money? Resources.
It's going to be bad. And I just don't see a good ending to this.
No, unfortunately, I don't either.
I mean, Russia has air quotes legitimate security concerns about being encircled by NATO, but they're the bad guy here. I mean, it's the special operation and saying, well, it's not an invasion. It's a special military operation to deal with the neo-Nazis led by the Jew.
It's absolutely ridiculous what he said. I mean, he could have just said, hey, we told you not to be part of NATO. You didn't listen. And here's what's going to happen. And in fairness, Ukraine has had plenty of warning that don't join NATO.
Everybody has had plenty of warning that this was coming down the pipe. How many weeks, months was Russia sitting an army on their border saying, we're just doing missions. We're not preparing to invade.
Yeah.
We're just doing special operation. We're just doing training missions of the invasion of Ukraine.
You just moved a third of your military to the border. It's one of those things where you just kind of watch and you go, this and everyone's like liking it to like Germany with Poland, right? Like, we'll just let him do his thing in Poland.
This is the problem, right? So unchecked aggression just encourages more, right? So if this works for Putin, I mean, it's like Crimea, right? Crimea went in. I mean, they took sanctions, which I think are still in effect, but it's like clearly they weren't bad enough.
Well, they're bad now in Russia.
Oh, they're really bad now. SWIFT.
So China.
Gone.
Did you see with China?
Oh, which part about China?
Well, China was like, said to put like. My thought was always that China was going to side with Russia as an ally because that's just what we always assume, right? And then China is like, hey, you gotta stop. Like China's even saying, okay, this is all bad for everybody. We don't want to go to war. Right, because if Russia goes to war with how that's going to roll out. He's going to expect his allies, like, and North Korea is sitting on the edge of their bed, like, "Viva la fight!"
China believes the best way to conquer the world is economically, which they've been fairly successful at this point. They're
cheap labor.
Cheap labor. That's right. You go off, you subsidize the crap, you get everybody to make things here, you steal their intellectual property, and then you go off and say, okay, now we're going to increase costs. And by the time it takes you to roll things back.
We're seeing that now. That we're just not able to build things, and that's why there's so many shortages of electronics and not just everything. Yep. It's crazy. Like we don't make anything ourselves because why would we? We can spend a third by getting someone else to do it.
To make it there, and it's cheaper to make it there and ship it halfway across the world than it is to make it here. what the hell happened?
happened to us. Well, and that's yeah. And that's why I think you're going to see inflation go way up as we start to actually manufacture
What do you
things
mean
here.
start to go way up?
I know. What's it at? 6%? Just fucking 6%. Oh my God. But yeah, as a business owner and stuff, like you start to look at your costs and you go, oh my God, like the small guys are going to pay. Small guys. I'm a small guy. We're and we don't have the buying power of these big companies to say, no, this is what you can sell it to me for. We get hit. We take the hit. God damn it.
But then you pass the hit on to us, the consumer.
To some degree.
Who's the real bad guy, Phil? Who's the real bad guy? I'm a landlord, buddy. Trust me. All my costs are going up. And now I don't generally raise my rent. We have never raised, the only time we raise rent is when people move out. We usually try to set the rent to market, but we usually leave it as is.
Yeah.
But yeah, all my costs are going up and I'm like, oh God, like I don't want to pass it on to my tenant. It'll get to the point where I have to.
Of course. I mean, you aren't in the business of losing money, are you?
No, but I don't mind helping people out. Again, like we charge below market rent for our townhome, for example, in town. So
yeah. And which is good. I mean, but few landlords are like you, right?
Correct. So, most want to make money.
Yeah, and not only make, like, you're looking at you're playing the long game.
Somebody else is paying off a mortgage, so as long as it I have happy tenants. Happy tenants usually take care of the place. Although my current tenant is the other type of bad tenant. You have bad tenant number one is the guy who pushes the whiskey bottles through the drywall. Bad tenant number two is the one who doesn't want to inconvenience you, so doesn't tell you when the bathtub is leaking and is now in the kitchen.
It falls through the floor. Or your house is floating away down the street.
Correct. Because they don't want to inconvenience you. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. But yeah.
I don't want to be a bother. You are being a bother by not telling me shit.
That's right. Exactly.
Anyway. Well, today, because it looks so nighty in here. It's so dark and mysterious.
Foreboding.
Mothman or woman. I'm not sure. Moth people. Anyway, Mothman.
We're not sure of the Mothman's pronouns, but we're reasonably sure
it's he, a cryptid. He, they. No, I don't know. Anyway, let's get to her. Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host Corey, and tonight we are talking about a fly-in thing, a moth, maybe a mothman, a moth woman. I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone.
I think just by doing that, I think you offended people. So,
yeah, but it's the Mothman. Yeah, you've all heard of it. The dreamy Richard Gere. Back in the day, he had the coolest hair. I remember being like, man, I would love that guy's hair. Now I don't have hardly any hair.
except for Richard Grere's in a bag.
He probably still has his hair. Dude's got to be in his 60s.
But would you know, honestly, with Hollywood, seriously, I mean, if they're at all successful, you can get stuff done.
For sure. It sounds too painful for me. I don't want to do that shit.
No, but you can get a really good weave done.
Oh, I could have a weave. I get dreads.
Okay, not like dreads. You get basically a hairpiece, and what they do is they weave it into your existing hair.
How do you wash it?
With soap? I don't know.
Like if it comes out, it's on my hands.
I don't know. I honestly don't know, Phil. I suspect there's some maintenance involved in doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so our story here begins most notably in 1966. So I'll give you kind of a brief synopsis. Or not you. You probably know more about this stuff than I do.
This is your topic, buddy. You're running with this.
I'm running. Yeah, it's a broad topic depending on how you look at it. A lot of people do this topic in like many parts. We are not.
No.
because you can go down so many rabbit holes with this, because there's a lot of theories. And tonight I think we should just mostly talk about what is known.
What is known? What is known? I get a
What is
kick out of that when
known.
we talk about things like with cryptids. What is known?
Well, I mean, in terms of like, we're not guessing. Like, there were actual accounts of like,
fair enough.
right?
Fair enough.
Like, I mean, you know, we can
Not something that's been scientifically proven. More
well, no,
something
not
that's
necessarily.
Like, hey,
yeah, exactly. But also
no,
not like, I think it's interdimensional.
it's called ultra terrestrial, Phil. That's what the cool kids
That's
call it.
That's the old name. Is interdimensional. It's ultra terrestrial. Yeah. So that's kind of it. So
Okay.
Mothman
Hit me with the summary here, bud.
It's not so much a summary, but Mothman is one of those things that has kind of been in mainstream media or culture, right? With the Mothman movies and stuff. It falls into the category, if you read the early stuff, as a cryptid, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's there were sightings and encounters where people had seen this man-like creature with wings. That would be odd. A very large man.
Which would be very weird, right?
Yeah,
this is something that weird. You'd be like, huh, that's not something you see every day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's coming from my throat.
Right. And this started in 1966 with a few people. We'll go over that. We'll kind of do like a breakdown. Yep. And then it happened over the course of a year that there was multiple sightings in this town, which is Point Pleasant. Basically was the center point hub of this whole fiasco. And then a pretty big catastrophe happened, and I think that's what sealed this. I think if there wasn't a big catastrophe, we wouldn't even be talking about it likely today.
Well, it certainly helps being able to tie. Now, again, whether it's us processing grief or right. how we handle something, right? Tying the two events together.
Right.
But there's also something funny about that where we talk about the big catastrophe, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
And how it that almost it's a weird situation where in one case it's been a tie too, but in another case it almost completely crushed.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. That's horrible. Anyway, so yeah, our story kind of starts basically. I think one of the first sightings was in 1966. It's documented. So these are documented sightings. People were like, what the fuck was that? A couple gravedigger guys, they were working the cemetery, spotted something, and they were like, what is that damn thing?
What did they spot, Phil?
A brown human being. And I'm like,
that's racist.
That is racist.
That's right. They didn't say some dude with wings. They said brown human being.
Right. But it was jumping from tree to tree, like in an unnatural way.
Yeah, they said like kind of a weird gait. It's a massive figure moving from tree to tree.
Yeah.
So no mention of wings, though. None.
True.
No mention of wings.
Now, with that said, the wings were also, if they were not extended, they you may not have seen them, right? Like, because it was in the middle of the evening, I believe.
Sure.
So moving, yeah. So they were like, okay, this is really weird. And then that brings us to our next, it was the two couples.
How long after the gravedigger saw
like 3 days. It was like really, so a lot of these happened in a short period.
Which I'm gonna say gives a bit of credence that the gravedigger one, like, basically was kind of dismissed, like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, these guys were like,
yeah. You're grave diggers, right?
You're a grave digger. You're not expected to not drink on the job.
That's right. I think it has to kind of go with it, right? But then 3 days later, you have the bigger.
You have, yeah, and this is the one that actually made the news. So
Point Pleasant Register.
The what? Sorry.
The Point Pleasant Register.
That's right. Yes. So they had eyewitnesses. Basically, there were two couples. There was Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette. And from their description, the beast, they call it, had and this is very common. This is like most of the descriptions after these people, which you have to wonder, is that because they originally did this just like Do you know what I mean? You have to almost be like, oh, okay, did you see that? Or, are you just saying you saw it? So yeah, we're basically, they said that it had a wingspan of 10 feet. And it tried to avoid their car. So they were in the car.
Yeah.
This thing was on the ground and they saw it. And the light, I guess, was like,
and they said it was about 7 feet tall. Now this
huge.
is where
Yeah,
this is where things get a little weird.
Yeah.
But 7 feet tall with a massive wingspan.
Right. And it was kind of pale gray, etc. Right. So, or to some effect. Yeah. And its eyes were about 6 inches apart. I'm thinking, how would you know how far apart its eyes are if you're moving?
That is like, that's an awfully specific detail to come up. Now its eyes apparently were like bright red, so they were like the color I can't see on the stoplights, right?
Oh yeah, well they akin it to like bicycle reflectors.
Yeah,
right.
But like massive ones, like they're like these were big. These weren't little ones. These were these big. Which and again, like you said, 6 inches apart. Yeah. That's awfully specific.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And then it chased them.
It flew after them, right? Like it actually flew. It didn't chase. They mentioned something about it.
Well, it was clumsy as a runner. It couldn't run very fast. Like it was awkward.
Like a penguin. They said moved like a penguin on the ground. Which funny contrast with the grave diggers thing of it jumping through the trees.
Right. Like, well, leaping from tree to tree may be different. Like if you look,
maybe penguins are great leapers. Is that what you're suggesting?
They're great swimmers. They're beautiful swimmers.
Beautiful swimmers.
They're very agile. Yeah, the majestic penguin. Prolific maters and wonderful swimmers. Yeah.
Good with their feet.
That's those little happy feet. Yeah. So it was moving. They said that their car, they eventually outran it, but it was moving at around 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, they were doing like a 57 Chevy is what they were saying. So and it was on a stretch. The stretch they had met it on. Now, did you read about the area, the TNT area where this happened, right? Because you can't have something like this without a secret decommissioned government facility.
That's right. Oh yes, the TNT place. So it was a munitions area. It was they built. Yeah, it wasn't just TNT. Like they built all sorts of munitions.
Sure, and they had those igloos, and they decommissioned. So apparently, during World War II, it was one of the largest employers of the town. People would be bussed in. All the windows were blacked out. They would do their job, and then they would leave.
Right.
Of course, anytime you have a secret government building that's blacked out,
well, something's going on.
Something's going down, right? There's some now. The buildings themselves have been decommissioned. I think they've been bulldozed, I believe, but the igloos are still there. Because how do you get rid of underground cement bunkers other than filling them with cement? Well, it turns out you leave them open.
Yeah. So they're you're not wrong. They were, but at the same time, they figured we'll get into that because there's theories about that as well as to how or what this thing is. So anyway, they figured that it was important enough. I don't know if they contacted the police, but I know that they did contact the Point Pleasant registry.
They did contact the police. So what had happened was they had originally left, and then they're like, "What the hell's going on?" And they talk about. I was reading one article where we were talking about they stopped it at like a Tim's Diner or something. Yeah, and they had gone back, and when they were leaving, when they were driving away the first time, they saw a dead dog, and when they came back, the dead dog was gone, and the Mothman was there again, and then at that point they lost their minds, and then completely went and reported to the cops. Yeah, so there's actually a documented official police report.
Yeah, that they went. I didn't read about them going back. Maybe
I don't know if that's inconsistent with the stories I've read. So in one case, the story is they fled the first time, go to the diner, get their, and then they go immediately to the police after, I guess, stopping at the diner for.
Like if you were that if you were that not smart to go back there, I would be like, okay, now your story is even more like,
Uh-huh.
if I see
Unless you came back
like
with
that,
firearms, right? Like
well,
I
this
get it
is
if you
it.
went off and you armed
Heavily
yourself.
armed, ready to shoot this thing out of the sky. And anything that can fly 100 miles an hour. Now, I don't even know if a car back then would go 100 miles an hour. I mean, not easily.
So apparently the stretch that they were on, this is what I was read, it was common for drag racing. So some of the things actually say that these kids were out, this couple was out, these two couples were out, like they weren't necessarily going to go make out at the TNT area. They were actually using this straight stretch of highway to just
okay, I see.
Just flat out. Now with like a 57 Chevy, I guess a 57 Chevy could do 100 miles an hour. I mean,
but if it was like a 57 Chevy truck,
it was a, what was it? 1 second here. I'll tell you exactly.
Can you find it? Yeah, because
what was it?
My business
Rogers 57 Chevy. So it did a black 1957 Chevy.
Oh, okay.
It's an old, here I got a picture of it. It's an old friggin' Roger Scareberry's 1957 Chevy.
Nice.
It's a car that was supposedly chased at speeds of over 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my business partner has a 67 Chevy Impala. And if this thing went 100 miles an hour, I'm pretty sure you'd die.
You'd die. You'd die.
Like, have you driven a car like an old car, like with no power? Like there's nothing like it.
No. I had to never at 100 now. Okay. So for those who are not in Canada,
miles
you're roughly
an hour,
looking
much
at
faster.
Much faster. It's when I was my first trip to the United States, I got off at the Dulles and I'm driving on the Beltway and I'm like, driving along and people are passing me like I'm just standing still. And I'm like 100. Oh God. I'm like, that's 100 miles an hour. And they're still blowing past me. Cause when you do it's a buck. So it's like, I think it's 1.2 kilometers per mile. So 100 miles per hour is 120 kilometers per hour. And I don't know about you, Phil, when I get up over 100 in any car I've ever driven, no matter how new, it starts to shake, rattle, and roll. And
I mean, it depends on and our roads are not that great here. So everything shake, rattles, and rolls.
I almost lost my micro in a pothole on the other day.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah. It was one of those, call it a pothole does not properly describe the raw awesomeness of this crater.
Well, this right is like now everything's like washing away.
The stuff they killed the dinosaurs with, it was about that size.
Oh,
like
good.
And of course it's on like your off ramp, like you're turning off and you're like, unless you know it's there, congratulations. You've just lost the front end of your car. Will
the city pay for that? Will they reimburse you for?
I still have a claim. So back in 2019, we had 2017, we had the flood, the 100-year flood. And then we had the sequel, the biblical 1,000-year flood in 2019. Jesus. And the city crushed part of my driveway with a backhoe.
Nice.
Now, mind you, in their defense, my driveway was in terrible shape and it looked like the surface of the moon. So it needed to be fixed anyway. However, so I filed a claim. I said, okay, well, let's see what they do. And they were like, well, if you ever fix it, I'm like, so, okay, when are you guys going to do something? Well, we'll get back to you. So I gave them a year, did nothing. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get my driveway done. I still have the claim. They were supposed to tell me once the assessment was done. I want to call them and say, hey, what's going on with this? So good luck getting the city to reimburse you if you lose a tire or a car to a pothole that they ought to have fixed. And they might even argue that because it's the Queensway, it's technically provincial versus municipal or federal. I don't know.
Oh, federal. Be a federal. Yeah.
So
the Trans-Canada, basically, right?
Where were we? The 57 Chevy going
57
to the levee,
Chevy doing 100 miles an hour.
But the levee was dry.
Yes. Some good old boys drinking whiskey and rye.
There you go.
So anyway, the reporter, you could imagine being the reporter going, all right, so what did you see? And now this is West Virginia. Also, I don't know, West Virginia, kind of known to be a no nonsense state.
Funny you mention that though. So West Virginia is also known as one of the most haunted states. I was reading about that.
Yeah, probably the murders. the hillbilly murders.
The hillbilly, that's right. The hills have eyes.
You ever drive
Texas
through?
Chainsaw Massacre.
You ever drive through Virginia? I drove through West Virginia. It's like driving. You drive like round this mount, like it's just nonstop corners, and then you go through mountains. It's pretty spectacular, actually, how they've done it. But yeah, Jay and I actually stayed in Virginia somewhere.
So Jay's favorite line is "Vagina is for lovers." He actually, for some reason, I guess that's what they say in their license plate.
Virginia is for lovers. Yeah, that's true. I guess I don't know. We were there. We were like, I don't want to be here.
It's Phil and Jay in Deliverance Part 2.
Yeah, a lot of banjos playing. We're like, why is there banjos everywhere?
So Point Pleasant has about 4,300 people. That's their population.
Yeah, they're
or
small.
at least that's their population now. So you could imagine, of course, they have a local newspaper, the Register, so they would be eating this up. So I always wonder how much that played into it, right? Like you've got this crazy claim made. You're like, you know what? We need to report on this because it's a slow news day. We can't keep talking about Ma Baker's apple pies again.
Yeah. Well, there were more sightings before I believe the article was even published. Because I think it was 3 days after there were 8 additional sightings in a short span of 3 days after the first claim.
But were they reported? So this is the part I couldn't figure out whether they were reported.
Well, it says reported, so I don't know.
But I'm wondering, were they reported within the 3-day span, or were they reported after the article came out and say, oh, because this is the thing, right?
That's a good point. That's what
I couldn't tease that out, because you're right. Once this article came out, you saw all these reports. Yeah. I just wasn't sure, because the Gravedigger,
that's the first.
That's the first. And
that's
I don't
the very first.
They didn't report it to the police. I don't think they reported it to the paper, but they were like offhanded. Oh, yeah.
I think they must have reported it to somebody, because how would you know otherwise, right?
Why would you know otherwise, right?
But you don't know their names. I couldn't find their names. So just the Gravediggers.
Maybe it's a family name.
Maybe.
The Gravediggers were out. Were they digging? No, they're actually.
You just know. Oh, I don't want to be friends with you.
They're actually airplane mechanics.
Maybe. Well, so of the 8, 2 of them were volunteer firefighters. So,
which isn't surprising in that area. That I mean, you've got it's like, remember Redbridge, right?
Oh my God!
I think everybody was a volunteer fire. I wasn't
either. They were so drunk all the time. I mean,
the foundation savers.
We can fight fire even drunk. That's our motto.
It's our motto.
Well, but they said they saw a large bird with red eyes.
Okay, so let's pick on that point for a second.
Yes.
What is this creature called?
The Mothman.
And everybody describes it as
a big bird, I guess.
It's like,
hey, bird.
Yeah, exactly. Now you got Big Bird hopping between, from Sesame Street hopping.
I'm sick, bird. I need my medicine, bird.
I need my medicine. And apparently they had workshopped some names around where they talked about the Manson bird monster or some, because everything talked about it as a bird, and then suddenly
it's got wings.
It's a bird, right?
Yeah.
And it's a bird, not a moth. Nobody described it as a large man-sized moth.
Right. So there was shortly thereafter, another fellow made reports. I'm not sure if he was mentally unwell. His name was Newell Partridge. Did you read about this guy? Uh-huh. That was the patterns on the TV.
Yes. So and his dog. I think something happened to his dog too.
Yeah. So I don't.
His dog he blamed his dog's disappearance on it.
He said he was watching TV. His TV started to do some weird, funky stuff, and he went outside. I don't know if he had like an antenna. Like when we were kids, we had this old antenna.
How are you not? But think about this. This is what, 60s? Of course it was an antenna. I'm pretty sure West Virginia didn't have a cable station.
Right. So you had this probably massive antenna. Okay. Oh, Edith, I'm going outside. I'm trying to get the Johnny Carson show and
my stories.
So I guess I'm trying to get my stories, but I guess he had a flashlight, shined this flashlight in the direction he heard some noises. He saw two big red eyes, look like bicycle reflectors, and then it disappeared. So that was taken into account. But yeah, I didn't read anything about his dog going missing, but that would be
it was sort of like the one article I was reading was an addendum to the end, like, and he, he's pretty sure it's the reason why his dog went missing. I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
like that basically the Mothman snuck in and was like had lunch on his dog or something.
Bloody stump of a collar left on the chain.
See, and that would be, so if they had that, I would say, okay, great. But it's like literally the dog went missing and your first thought is the Mothman ate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
married
it or something, took it as his own.
A lot of these happen in this TNT area.
Yep.
Right. This. So
which,
that was
honestly, if you look at some of the pictures of the igloos, I'm thinking if I were making my Mothman lair, I'm like, this looks pretty good. I mean,
right. I don't know much about a Mothman lair, but if there's a
covered.
Mothman, there has to be a moth woman.
Just like a Sasquatch, there has to be a Swatch Kiss S.
What? That could be a new term completely.
That's right.
We're gonna have some Bigfoot people on here going, we're using that.
We're using that, or don't ever say that term again.
Yeah, or we'll get comments of don't ever. You're idiots. Don't do that. Okay. But yeah, so now we get into kind of the people are going, okay, listen, idiots. This could be nothing more than a mutant.
This could be nothing more than a mutant. Yeah, this is the sandbill crane.
Yeah, so we call them mud hens around here. So they're just big fucking mud. They stand in mud. You'll see them. They're a big herring crane. And what they said was the locals are like, oh yeah, we shit seeps into the water around the TNT, and
they said the red. So that was one of the things. So it was like the McClintock National Park or what it's been. Yeah. The area has been given back and it's because it's an animal wildlife preserve, but they've got I think I want to say 60s or 70s they had red water, which is a sign that there's seepage from what
contamination. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So because got news for you folks, making explosives. Yeah, it's not a clean, easy process. There's a lot of industrial elements in that, and surprise.
With that said, though, there's absolutely nothing to prove that there was a mutant crane fly. This is not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, people. I love that show. That was my favorite show growing up. The cartoon we used to watch when we were kids.
Okay, so the one we watched when we were kids was Garbaggio. The one in 2000s was actually much better. They did several reboots. The second one was the good one.
Oh, I really liked it. That's the only one I ever watched.
The first one?
From school. Yeah, come home from
Teenage
school.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
I know. And April O'Neil running around in that yellow jumpsuit as
she never changed.
Yes, but she's running around in a jumpsuit and she's a reporter. When have we ever seen a reporter running around in a jumpsuit?
I know. I didn't think of it then. I was just like,
with the white boots.
Just ready for like any kind of action.
Any kind of action. That's right. Yeah. Any kind. She's ready.
Yeah. Like, I like how in the movie, the first movie, they made Casey Jones like a good guy. Because he wasn't a good guy in the TV show.
Well, I don't remember so in the comics, he was always a vigilante. So apparently in the reboot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, the one they did mid 2000s, they've got Stephen Amell and he's in that and he's a bit of an idiot.
Oh.
So he's like a well-meaning idiot.
Like Forrest Gump type?
Not that bad, no, but like, just
I love
more
you,
like
JNA.
Not that bad.
Oh, okay.
But he's just more of like your archetypical dumb white male, whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, the one in the original Ninja Turtles, I thought that was great. What was
I'll never call golf a dull game again.
That's right. Exactly. Cricket. I just remember Raphael's like, cricket, it's lame. And then just clocks him with the cricket.
Was it crumpet? That was great.
Yeah, that was well done. The sequels were sufficiently downhill. Don't forget Vanilla Ice in the second one.
I don't remember villain. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to look that up and post it. because I don't remember
Vanilla Ice was in the second one.
Dum,
He
dum,
actually
dum,
sung
dum,
a
dum,
song.
dum, ch, dum,
Okay, it
dum,
wasn't
dum,
an
dum,
Ice Ice
dum,
Baby.
ch.
He was, I can't remember
Oh.
the song, but
Oh, damn. Anyway, well, yeah.
anyway, yeah,
So
we've
back to our
completely
story.
gone afield. Mutants.
So the
mutant
next thing
sandbill crane.
was the sandbill crane. Yeah. So, cranes in general are large birds. They are not 6 feet tall, but they do have large wingspans.
Yeah.
Would you mistake one as a human being with enormous wings? I think you'd have to be very drunk or high or
completely. And
not
so
well.
now, but it's funny though. See, one of the characteristics they talk about, which again, given the fact most of these things happen at night, and they talk about the reflectors, so I kind of call shenanigans on this. So if you look if you pull up a picture of the sandbill crane, what you'll see is they have around their eyes this reddish plumage.
Right. Yes.
So their eyes aren't the size of bicycle reflectors, but they have this red plumage around their eyes.
Right.
Which is not going to reflect.
No.
And you're not going to see at night. Like you're just not going to notice that.
Now, animals at night, they do have receptors in their eyes. If there's any minute amount of light, you will see a reflection in their eyes.
Sure.
Except for humans. Humans don't have that shit.
Well, we get red eye when you take photos, but yeah, at night we don't see the reflection off of the
because our night vision sucks.
Correct.
As far as
So talking about that, one of the other options is let's say the sandbill crane. Okay, that's ridiculous. Fine. But what's one of the other options that actually plays into what you just talked about?
Well, there's a bunch of fucking people make pranksters, basically. Yeah.
I wasn't going there, but that's true. This is they talked about sometime construction workers attaching bicycle reflectors to hot tube balloons. But I'm talking the barred owl.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because the barred owl. So some people folks, it is fascinating what people will research and do. Somebody went off and went to the effort of saying, let's look into the Mothman, which nobody ever said he's a moth. Aside from the name and the pictures,
weird.
Everything seems to be like it's a big bird, so it'd be like the Birdman.
Hey, bird.
That's right. Hey, bird. But they talk
Sesame
about the
Street. It's the best.
But they talk about the barred owl. So the barred owl can be fairly large, can have a long wingspan.
Sure.
And has they talk like a red sight line or something like that. They have big eyes. Owls have massive eyes. They do. And they also, the reason why they turn their head is because they have such big eyes. They have no muscles in there to actually do that. So they actually have to turn their head. But they have these big eyes. So you see some pictures, Google it, folks, and you see light shining on them. And it does look like glowing eyes. Now, mind you, they're not 7 feet tall and they're not 10-foot wingspans, but I mean, you're looking
for sure
wingspans and, maybe, I don't know, let's be generous and say 2.5 feet tall, 3 feet tall.
3 feet would be a very large. I mean, I've seen the horned owl. We had one who died at our, out in Redbridge. Growing up, it jumped on we were all sitting on it's a funny story. We were all sitting on the front.
There's an animal dying, and all of a sudden it's funny.
Well, it wasn't really funny that way, but
it wasn't funny for it.
I was like, Dad, look, there's what is that? And there's this big bird flying. You don't see owls during the day too much. I mean, they're nocturnal hunters, right?
Correct.
And the old man's like, that's a big owl. And then it flies and it lands on the hydro pole by the transformer.
Oh.
Yeah. And back in the day, the transformers, I think, were very different because this thing touched the transformer and it just and it falls to the ground. And we're like, what the fuck just happened?
There's good eating.
No, well, we went over and it's funny because the owl looked in perfect shape. And it was huge. I remember it being so big. It was
I've seen the big owls too. Again, it was big. They can get big,
really big. And he ended up calling. There was a taxidermy guy. I don't even remember that. Towards
down towards Balsam Creek. Yeah,
that's right.
Just off the highway. Yeah.
The old man's called him and said, "Well, this thing is in perfect shape. Do you want it?" He came up and he got it. And ended up taxidermy because it was perfect. Like nothing was damaged on this animal, and that's what electricity does, folks. It will fuck your day up. Anyway, yeah. So
this is birds.
The birds.
In both cases, the most plausible air quotes. They keep talking birds, and everybody describes it as even the Scarberry. Okay, described it as, what was it? As a man-sized bird-like creature. Like everybody describes it as, like, nobody's saying it's a moth.
No.
And apparently the name took off because of Batman, by the way.
So Batman was big back in the the TV show Moth, Batman. I don't know why they wouldn't have said it was a Batman. Real life Batman. I don't know.
I'm not sure how the moth aspect got in. Like, really, it's
and so the theory about pranksters is sort of, you have to wonder. There's always a chance that people are just, like
jerks.
You said, yeah, they're having fun. They're doing whatever, and tried to scare a couple guys, and then it worked. And then, but to fly 100 miles an hour, all these other things, like, that doesn't make sense, right?
So this is where stuff starts to get a little screwed up, right? So they've done some studies, and did a couple studies. So one of the studies they did was, I think it was Monster Quest. They had a bunch of cardboard or plywood Mothman cutouts with the glowing eyes, and basically drove down the road and said, okay, how tall is that?
Oh,
nobody could accurately predict or accurately call how tall it was. So this lends credence to the, it could have been a big owl, and here all of a sudden it's got a 40-foot wingspan, and it's it's Mothra, right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Same thing with the speed, though, right? Like, you're telling me, like, the guy's flooring it and you're being okay, Phil. Yes. Let's put you in the Scarberry's place, right? You're driving in your car, right? You're being chased. Are you going to go off and say, I'm doing 100 miles per hour? Or you're going to look in your rear view at Mothra chasing you. You're going to and you're either looking ahead or you're looking behind. You're not going,
Right.
Hey,
no,
guys, we're doing a buck.
Yeah, we're not really worried, but humans have a tendency to embellish, right? We all do that, and
correct.
So it could have been, and these cars, like I said, 100 miles an hour would have been very fast at that time in '66. Like, there would have been modifications made to that vehicle, guaranteed.
Well, I mean, and it would have to be well maintained. Again, I wasn't able to find too many details other than that it was a 1957.
I'm not a car
Chevy
guy, even though, believe it or not, I work. Yeah, but
okay. You don't work. You work on cars, but you put electronics in cars. You make them smarter.
I'm not a. That's right. I'm not.
You're not a gearhead.
I have no interest in being so. Yeah, I do cool shit to cars. Other than that, not interested.
Some gearheads might argue with you about the definition of cool shit, but fine.
Of course they would. Yeah, like, somebody's like, oh yeah, I just put on like Brembo brakes and all this other shit. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But if you need a remote starter or stereo, come see me. So the hysteria in this town just goes off its rocker. Right.
And this is where so you have all these all the reports start to spike, right? And everybody either had an encounter or knew of somebody who had an encounter. So it becomes totally the anecdotal fallacy where it's like, well, I talked to Phil and he said he saw an 8-foot tall moth guy.
So this also leads to where things go from cryptid to UFO, because there were some sightings of strange lights in the sky at this time. And there were a few accounts. Now, with that said, I couldn't find anyone that made this claim and have a name to attach to it. So
it's just numbers of reports. Aside, once you get past the Gravediggers and the Scarberry and the Millet,
it all just becomes this blur because there's so many. Other than that other dude there, what was his name? I have it here.
Oh, Partridge.
Newell Partridge. So yeah, there was talks of telekinesis that someone had seen the Mothman and it spoke to them without words.
And fear, that's so a common thing that I've said is the
Yeah.
raw abject terror that
Yes.
the total lizard brain kind of panic starts to set
Actually, I
in.
do have some accounts. We'll get into that after. We'll kind of cover. I think we should just kind of cover the up to the bridge sort of thing, and then because we're pretty much there, right?
Yep.
So they're in the movie, so we can discuss the movie as well a little bit. The movie is based off of basically a book that was written by what was his name? Keel.
John Keane.
Was it Keen or Keel?
Keel. Sorry, not Keen. I'm thinking Commander Keen.
Commander Keen. Yeah, so he writes this book, and that book is loosely based on another guy's book from 1970.
Yeah, and Keel was a ufologist. Like he was a ufologist, parapsychologist, and a journalist.
That's right. Yeah. So
he is legendary ufologist. I was reading. He died at 79.
Oh, really?
In 2009.
Oh, well, hold on a second here. I'm looking for. Oh, here's my page. Got so many pages. Yeah, John Keel. So he writes the book. It was 9 years after all of this had happened, but his book was based on Gray Barker's book in 1970 called The Silver Bridge. And this is the first time that the Mothman is mentioned in a book. And basically John Keel kind of stole all the shit from him.
Was inspired. The proper term, Phil, is inspired. Was inspired. Yeah. And FYI, when you look at anything, when you talk about the books like the Mothman prophecies, based on a true story. Oh my God. That is such an overused term. Literally in anything that's based off a true story.
Yeah. Now, for them to say that, the bridge came down.
Exactly. There was a bridge and it collapsed. That was the truth. It's based upon.
So if you watch the movie, no spoiler alerts here. It's
from movie release. If you haven't seen the Mothman prophecies yet,
you probably won't. But
you're probably not going to.
He's a dude that ends up. I watched it years ago, and I just kind of went. I don't want to watch it again. It didn't really resonate with me. But he mysteriously ends up in this town of Point Pleasant. His wife had just recently died
of a brain tumor.
Yeah, and
after she saw the Mothman,
right? And then there's just all these accounts of him having weird experiences, and basically that the Mothman is a premonition of things to come, right? He's
herald of doom,
the hairbringer of doom, or
not necessarily the cause of it, but similar to a banshee in that. The wail of the banshee doesn't kill you. The wail of the banshee tells you somebody is going to die. It's not like the banshee is going to show up and murder you. So the Mothman showing up doesn't mean the Mothman is sawing away at the silver bridge.
No, and so they kind of use that as now this is all interpreted by Keel. Keel's like, this is a story. This is a work of fiction. This is not something that
I think he might have said, this is a story. This is a work of
fiction.
Right. You might have said that part real quiet.
This is the story, because none of the characters in that book exist.
Correct.
So you can't, I mean, anyway. But then we get to the bridge, and the bridge is kind of a really sad story because what was it? Like 40 some people died. Right?
Yeah. Like I think something
people.
like 60 some went in and 47 didn't come out kind of thing.
Yeah. So the bridge was built in 1928. So this bridge has been around for, at this point, 40 years in 66, right? Or almost 40 years. Bridges, when they were first originally built, and this is why infrastructure has to change like it does.
Build back better.
Yeah. So it wasn't designed for the weight limits of multiple large cars. And you got to remember too, like back to my business partner's car. This thing weighs a solid 2 tons. It's a convertible. Doesn't even have a real roof.
And FYI, you haven't put people in it yet, which each person adds, 1 to 200 pounds. Right. So you have 4 people in it. That's another 800 pounds there. You're
pushing 2.5 tons of people and car. Correct. And that's on average. So they actually used to use this thing called metal in cars. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
It was rather heavy gauge metal, where now, like, like a small child can push their thumb through the fender of most vehicles.
But okay, so in the car manufacturer's defense,
Mhm.
using lighter, so
Yes, fuel efficiency, all that good
fuel
stuff.
efficiency, right?
Yes,
So you
of
get
course.
like, I mean, so you can get up to 100 miles per hour
For sure,
in
for
your
sure.
car, I guess.
But
But
these
the funny
cars
thing
were
is,
not built. Yeah, they were
no,
not built like that. Yeah. So the cars, like a Model T, was about 1,500 pounds, to give you an idea. It was basically made of wood. My Uncle Ed had a Model T. It was it was so funny. The whole cabin was made of wood. Where the engine sat, like part of it, like was on a, like almost a wood. There was metal, but there was like wood all over the place. The bed of the thing was made of wood, and it was like 4 tires in a wood box. It's crazy. Anyway, so that's what it was built for. Engineers hadn't been able to, foresee the amount of cars, and what happened was there was a traffic jam.
Oh yeah, and in this case, I mean, this was a traffic jam after, like, this bridge was not freshly built. Like you said, it was 40 years old at the time.
Oh yeah, and not designed to hold this kind of weight. So there was a ridiculous amount of cars. Now I'll post a picture of the actual bridge, and there was some defects in the bridge.
They said a 3 or 6 inch crack in one of the girders that caused a rivet to, like, it basically, it was like a domino
once one
effect.
goes, it's like dominoes, right? And these bridges, bridge construction has come a long way. Like, bridges are meant to flex. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where like there's an earthquake and you see the bridges like,
well, this is suspension bridges, right? So suspension bridges are all cables, and the idea is it can sway, right? And that's apparently how you make.
It doesn't just snap.
That's right. Yes, correct. It's exactly. That's why buildings in Japan, to make them earthquake proof, do a bit of this, which is terrifying to watch if you're up on the top floor. But I mean, otherwise, it means they're not
like a willow tree. Take
like
the water.
That's right. That's right.
Strong oak breaks with the wind, and the willow just be the willow, my friends.
Smashing into the dirt.
Be the willow. Anyway. Yeah, so they hadn't been particularly imaginative about how they were building this bridge, and nor did they at the time probably think about it. There's no one to blame here. It's just technology hadn't got to the point where you've got giant engines in enormous, boats of cars. Like that 67 Impala I'm talking about. This thing is like 23 and 4 feet long. It's longer than my truck. I kid you not.
It's the fins.
You can have a hot tub party in the trunk. Just saying. Not that I know.
I always laugh when people convert their old, like, you see the ones where they turn them, like the old Impalas, into pickup trucks. So they take the back and they take the trunk in the back and they put a bed in it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's exactly. Like, I think you just ruined a nice car, but okay.
Just ruined it. Yes. Well, so anyway, that was devastating. A lot of people died. And somehow the Mothman became, and I believe that if without this, well, like I said, we wouldn't be even talking about it. And somehow that it got twisted by this book that the Mothman sort of predicted this event.
And so funny thing, originally when it first came out, so when the collapse happened, the Mothman, you were regularly hearing in the Point Pleasant Register, again, local, right?
Yeah.
You were hearing, all this stuff. And then the bridge came up, and then all of a sudden nobody cared about the Mothman. They were like, oh my God, the bridge collapsed and all these people died.
Oh yeah.
And then somehow, like, it was like, which should have killed the Mothman thing, right? Because usually you don't pick it back up after that. But because somehow, and I couldn't find this, the connection between the two got made.
Yeah. I don't know either, because I couldn't find anything that said, now without, that's not true. I did find stuff, but it didn't make a lot of sense. And I'm not going to repeat things to me that don't make a lot of sense.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. That, somebody told me that the Mothman talked to them. And okay, we're not playing that kind of card.
But this whole idea of this calamity. Now they've also linked it to, they said, for example, a similar creature. Now, again, this is now we're getting hearsay and anecdotal. Where Chernobyl, there was a similar creature found near Chernobyl before it went.
I was just gonna. It's funny you say that because I was just gonna get into. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Also, the Mexican swine flu in 2000.
Really, I didn't read about that. I read about the a Russian apartment bombing
and Fukushima in Japan. They said that in 2011 there was also a sighting. So now you have to start to go. All right. Well, I don't know.
But they're not independent at this point. So this is the problem we run into. At one time, so let's go back to our UFO report, right? So at one time, you wouldn't necessarily be able to go and collaborate stories. You would say, I saw this. And on the other side of the country, somebody would say, I saw this. They didn't know what each other saw. So they're actually collaborating their story by saying that. Right. Nowadays, again, like you said, the movie came out, right? Not that it did not do great in the box office, but no. I mean, Point Pleasant has a Mothman museum,
Richard
has
Gere
a Mothman
sells
festival.
movies, right? We'll get into that because what I think my personal opinion is that the town is kind of in you're talking 66. A lot of people are not sure what this is before we're desensitized to any of this shit.
Yep.
Right. You could have a Mothman walk down the main street and we'd all be like, that's awesome, man. Nice costume. And not be at all.
As he's going.
Yeah. Right. Eating dogs. And
that's right.
Talking to everybody telepathically, singing some sort of Vanilla Ice song.
Impressive stringing all those together, Phil.
Yeah, but we would not be at all shocked. But in 1966, you say we just saw some flying shit, and people. So the whole town is in this panic to some degree because news travels fast in these small towns, and then you have a catastrophe. So it only takes one person to go. I bet you that Mothman's behind this. I bet you.
I saw him with his hacksaw.
Right. Well, but think about it. This is too much of a coincidence. You know how people are.
Well, it's like the whole decline in piracy and the increase in global temperatures, right? Clearly, they're related.
Clearly, lots of piracy.
Because there's a correlation between the two, right?
That doesn't have to
the
do
number
with
of
the
reports
spaghetti monster, does it?
It's related.
His noodly goodness.
It's noodly goodness. They say that that's actually the pirates were the first Pastafarians.
Of course.
To relate back to the previous episode.
Of course. Like and subscribe.
Yeah. But that's the idea of, hey, wait a second. Look at all these reports of activity of the Mothman, and then the bridge collapses.
Right. It's too many coincidences here.
Which is, I think, that's a big stretch. That's like a Mr. Fantastic kind of stretch, but fine.
But now we're going back, right? There's no books written until the 1970s. So it's 5 years later.
Yeah, it's mostly local newspaper or
it kind of falls off the face of the planet a little bit. There's no more, maybe because they're dealing with the grief of losing a lot of members of their community, and it just sort of disappears. But then we go years later. Now we're looking at, like you said, there are the Mothman. They do Roswell. It makes me think of Roswell. The town goes, fuck, this is good money. We can bring in tourist bucks by just
got a big massive statue they dedicated with a plaque,
which looks really cool,
to the Scarberry and Millette sighting. Which poor grave diggers, again, they get screwed.
Those poor grave diggers, they're probably dead now, but still,
most likely. Apparently, Linda and her husband are divorced.
Oh, well,
and so Linda was willing to talk. Linda was willing to talk about the Mothman. Neither her husband nor the other couple, the Millettes, were willing to talk about the Mothman.
Really?
They would be interviewed.
What if they were warned
by the Mibs?
By the Mibs, the Men in Black. There was mention of that too when I was reading that Men in Black apparently had sort of shown up. No proof, no site, there was no names attributed to that.
Exactly.
I think I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think, I don't know, I listened to actually 2 podcasts about this, and they really deep dived into some of the weirdness
So did you stumble on Cornstalk's curse?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
well, do tell.
So this is, apparently there was a Native American chief Cornstalk, who basically had gone to visit. He was sort of like the peacemaker between the tribes and the military, right? The settlers coming in. And he had went to the military garrison to ask them to talk to them about stuff, you know, kind of diplomatically. And apparently a soldier had gotten killed. So the guys at the fort decided to execute Chief Cornstalk.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he cursed the area for the next 200 years.
Right.
And so they link that to, now, mind you, apparently the curse aspect was actually added into a middle school play about how terrible Americans were to normal settlers, but fine. Right. However, that's the part that's hard to tease out whether there actually was indeed a curse aspect or not. There was indeed a native chief called Cornstalk who was killed at a fort, like executed at a fort for something he literally had nothing to do with.
Of course.
Whether he cursed them or not. And so they've tried to tie that back, saying, well, the Mothman is really more of a bird, is a result of that curse. And well,
so there's the Firebird.
Yeah,
Thunderbird. No, Thunderbird.
Thunderbird. Yeah, Thunderbird. Firebird
was the old car that nobody liked.
Darren, what the hell was his name?
Barker.
Darren Barker and his fire chicken.
His fire chicken. He has a Tesla now. A Model
My
S.
sister-in-law has a Tesla.
Oh, your sister-in-law has one? Does she like it?
She does, but I was like, okay, yeah. What kills me is I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, do you know what this stuff does? What do you mean? I said, you know, this big panel that's essentially a little computer. Like, have you at all gone through? Because she didn't realize, for example, she could pull up her dash cam. And I said, well, you know, it's recording stuff. Well, I said it's recording stuff. I said, here's the recordings of all your dash cams.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, do you have Spotify? Like, I said, here's stuff you can pull up.
Yeah, man. This thing is pretty cool. I've worked on a bunch of them now.
Yeah. I suspect when they break down, good luck getting them done anywhere other than, well, I don't think anybody fixes them except for Tesla. So
you're not allowed to touch a Tesla to repair it. It will void your warranty. If you are listening, do not have a backyard mechanic or any mechanic for that matter touch your
do anything other than maybe polish the wheels on it or change the wiper blades.
We put paint protection film on them. That's a big one. I did put a trailer hitch on one. That was interesting. Lady wanted a trailer hitch, and I said, well, I'm gonna have to cut your bumper. So I cut the bumper on a $100,000 Tesla to fit. It's actually a factory, like they give you a template. It's a hitch designed for Tesla.
Okay.
And she wanted a bike rack. So the only way to do that was to put an actual hitch on the back of the.
Yeah, and then do the one where you.
It goes into a receiver, and
yeah.
And we were like, we didn't want to do it at first, and she's very persistent lady.
Did you get her to sign a bunch of stuff? Just so you know, if we screw anything up,
we did.
Here.
We did. Yeah.
There you go.
We cut the we cut the bumper. I did with a Sawzall. we have it on video. So maybe I'll post that one day. Anyway, we're off topic.
Very much
so. So the town makes money just by virtue of this TNT spot where the sightings have been. So people come and they make a party of it, and they
do a massive festival.
They dress with their little wings on, and they go around, and so why not exploit it? Fuck, I don't know. Hold on. So there has been some recent stuff, apparently.
Recent stuff there, because I had read some stuff that there are Mothman, like they talked about a Chicago Mothman. So we were specifically talking about the Point Pleasant one, but I guess maybe he wants to move to warmer climates or colder climates. I don't think Chicago's nicer than West.
Yeah, but the problem is that they're by this fella named Strickler, and he's a UFO. Right. So it's not like they're done by, I saw Mothman. And so he's basically doing these accounts, and there's been about 50, I guess.
And this is the one that it's self-reported on his site.
Yes. So his his Phantoms and Monsters website, which, if you can imagine, anyone can post on there. So maybe later I'll go post one too. And
Well, you've had your bizarre encounter.
a few here and there, mostly in my youth. But yeah, so there's been 21 alleged Mothman sightings in Chicago as of this year. Dum dum dum. Maybe something bad's happening.
Maybe
Like
there's a
COVID.
vigilante.
Mm.
Maybe it's like
with big wings and all sorts
fighting
of
crime.
Yeah. So one of the things on there was a woman was walking her dog. She encountered a creature standing in the park. Saw a large man, 7 feet tall, big red eyes. Felt an impending fear.
Yep.
Like nothing she's ever felt before. Which, you see a 7 foot tall dude with glowing red eyes and giant wings.
If I'm walking my dog through the park and I run in the middle of the night and I run into a 7 foot tall dude with anything, just
standing there staring at you,
I'd be like, it doesn't need to have glowing red eyes. It's a 7 foot tall dude. I mean, this is going to go bad. I'd be swinging the dog.
Take the dog. Don't take me.
Take the dog.
I'm not afraid to. But yeah, so there was another one where a man was fishing with his son in the little Calmet River. It says here that a man-sized black bird flew by them, etc., etc.
Again, see, this is the thing. It's always I talk about like the worst name ever, Mothman.
Yes,
it's a bird. Everything says it's bird-like. The only thing that says it's moth-like is the statue in Point Pleasant. Everything else is like, looks like a big bird.
Yeah, so the statue makes it look like a moth, like with the multiple eyes, like the bug eyes and the.
Yep.
But that's not what people say. They say that they're just red.
Yeah, nobody has ever seen the Mothman looking like a moth.
Yeah, no antennae.
No antennae, no mandibles. I guess
no cute silky wings.
Correct. Always generally bird-like wings.
Bird-like wings. You'd be hard pressed to lift a man off the ground with moth wings. That's just my opinion. So yeah, my feeling on this is maybe indeed people saw something.
I think they saw something. So I do want to believe they saw something, but the question
it just got blown into something completely ridiculous.
Correct. You saw something. You saw a barred owl. You saw somebody being a jackass. You saw a big bird.
Well, for argument's sake, let's say there is a cryptid, right? Like, and let's just say that there was something, but then, it does get turned, or maybe it is a mutant of some sort of.
That's right. Or maybe it is a supernatural curse of cornstalk. Who knows? Or maybe it is a harbinger of doom.
Perhaps, but it sort of is all based on a fictionist story,
How often have we seen that play out, Phil, where all of a sudden something takes off?
It's crazy because I didn't know there was a book written until we did this podcast. Did you know there was a book?
No, I just knew the movie and I just assumed
that's what I knew.
Yeah.
I knew there was a movie, but I didn't know the movie is based on a book. So I assumed when you watch the movie based on a true story, blah, blah, blah. Damn it. Got me again.
Again. Based on a true story. There was a bridge that collapsed. Well, what does that have to do with the Mothman? There was a bridge. It was based on it. We added the Mothman into it.
Yeah. Well, it's like any of these things that you say, like, when you go like Poltergeist based on a true story. Really?
Yeah.
This room is clear. Clean. Yeah. So do you want me to sum this up or
sum it up, buddy?
Mothman or woman or gender neutral thing doesn't appear to be a moth in terms of what we're it's more of a hey bird, I'm sick. I need my medicine.
Bird flu.
Give me my crack, bird. So bird is like, a bird would be more accurate. Seen by a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden hysteria breaks out in the town of Point Pleasant. And then we have some catastrophe, and then whatever the sightings were, they kind of get attributed to that catastrophe. Years later, a book gets written, completely fictitious, I guess you would say. And then, years later, a movie is made, and here we are. Do I think that Mothman's credible? I don't think so. Not like Bigfoot.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
If the proof is there, the proof is in the pudding. I'm not
maybe
just a guy who's going to believe in just anything. I'm a guy who looks
is the Mothman. Because remember, the gravediggers said a large brown man.
Silly now.
Well, no, seriously, hear me out. So one of the things we talked about with Bigfoot was some kind of hominid, right? So either a great ape or something. Yes. And the gravedigger saw a brown man, a brown human shape,
humanoid,
hopping between trees, moving quickly. I don't know about you, but hey, maybe
it is, but they didn't say it had wings, like you said.
That's right. The gravediggers didn't. It wasn't till 3 days later when Scarberry and Millett saw this bird-like thing that suddenly became the Mothman. So
right. So yeah. I'm not. It's one of those things where on this show, you know, I do believe there is such a thing as as a cryptid named, you know, Sasquatch. I have a feeling, like, it's not that I know. I've you look at evidence, you look at a lot of the video footage. That's the other thing. Where's the video footage of Mothman?
I've got some rough pencil drawings. Doesn't that count?
No, you need to have video because like what? Oh my God.
What are you talking about? I got video of Zelensky telling people the troops to stand down. Deepfakes exist now, so video doesn't count for anything anymore.
No, you're right. But like the Patterson film,
that's a little early to go on. Yeah, fair enough. That's one of the older ones. Yeah, there is nothing.
So the Patterson film is the only reason I believe. I look at that film and I go, that is a fucking animal. Hands down. I look at it and I look at every other Bigfoot thing that I've seen and I go, I don't believe that. I don't know. I don't trust it. I look at that film and that is a creature that you can see its muscles moving. You can see everything. We're getting into this too deep.
I don't not believe. Okay. So for the record, I don't not believe. Am I convinced? No, but I try to be open-minded because I mean, again, you've got the idea of cryptid, you've got the idea of ultra terrestrials, you've got the idea of supernatural creatures. Yeah. It gets kind of funky and weird.
Yeah. And on that note, what are we doing next week?
Okay. Similar to what I've done to you before when you inflict things upon me, although I don't consider this an infliction. I do like cryptids, the Flatwood monster. So we're still going to stay in West Virginia. We're going to talk about the Flatwoods monster.
Is it a Sasquatch?
No, it's probably another owl from everything I've read, but that's not the probably another owl. But the Flatwoods monster.
Flatwoods monster next week, folks. I can't, or 2 weeks, whatever. You don't know the difference. All right. Thank you very much for watching the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host, Corey. And next week, the Flatwoods monster or owl, whatever you want to call it. We'll see you then. Good night.
Take care, folks.